Democrats won one hotly contested U.S. Senate race in Georgia, pulling ahead in a second, edging closer to control of the chamber and the power to advance Democratic President-elect Joe Biden's policy goals when he takes office this month. Democratic challenger Raphael Warnock beat Republican incumbent Kelly Loeffler. Media reports suggest Warnock was ahead of Loeffler by 1.2 percentage points, roughly 50,000 votes, while Democrat Jon Ossoff held a narrow lead over Republican David Perdue by more than 12,000 votes. Most of the votes remaining to be counted were in counties Biden won in November, with roughly 13,000 ballots still to be counted in the Democratic-leaning DeKalb County near Atlanta. Warnock will become Georgia's first Black U.S. senator, and Ossoff at 33 would be the Senate's youngest member if he wins. All right, well, let's go then to the United States, where President Donald Trump's supporters are holding a rally in Washington. Our correspondent Nick Harper joins us now. Hello to you, Nick. As I was greeting you off air, I saw someone walking past with a banner there, Women for Trump, and I see some banners still there behind you, various supporters of Trump. There is this bid by radicalized Trump Republicans on the back of this to block the democratic process from happening. How much harm can they really do, and what can you tell us about what's happening in D.C. at the moment?
He came to die for your sins. And this is the greatest.
Well, I think today is really all about being a day where the people out on the streets are showing their support for the man that they have supported for the last 4 years, but in exactly 2 weeks' time will be leaving the White House. Now, Donald Trump says that the election was fraudulently stolen from him. Many people out on the streets also believe that. We're expecting thousands of people out here. As you mentioned, lots of flags. There's a stand just behind us that's selling merchandise, Trump 2020 flags and T-shirts. And over the course of the last hour or so, we've seen hundreds of people streaming past us. Now, they themselves will not be able to affect any change. It's more an opportunity to show in force that they are here supporting the president and supporting his message, that they feel that they were robbed of the election. Of course, all of those claims that the president has made and all of those beliefs of many of the people out here on the streets are unfounded. There's been no findings of any election fraud during the course of the last 2 months since the election. Donald Trump has continued to push those claims. He'll be speaking to supporters in just under an hour's time and is likely to continue to push those claims. But of course, none of that election fraud has been found. So it's really about supporting the president, being out here and making their voices heard.
I mean, I'm sorry, Nick, but I'm really focusing on the people behind you as you speak. Quite rude to you, I suppose. But I'm also noticing that there's a lot of people walking right behind you with absolutely no mask on. I mean, sure, of course they support Trump, and we know about the denialism that Trump did have about coronavirus, but then he got the virus himself. He in fact tested positive for coronavirus. So I would have thought that some of his supporters would have changed their stance on coronavirus, things that we're supposed to do and not supposed to do. And I see so many people, as you're speaking to me, walking behind you without their mask, without the regulations. What are the rules in the U.S. at the moment then?
Well, the rules are very piecemeal. In about 15 of the 50 states, there are no mask mandates or very limited ones. However, here in Washington, D.C., in the U.S. Capitol, the mayor of D.C. has mandated that people must wear masks. However, in terms of the Trump supporters out on the streets, there's only probably around 10% of them actually wearing any sort of face coverings against the rules of the city. It's interesting because I spoke to some supporters yesterday. I asked them about masks. There was one person who told me that he didn't know anyone who had been infected with coronavirus. He forgot that the president, of course, got coronavirus himself. Another woman told me that she thought that it was all a myth, that many of the deaths that we've seen in recent months have been due to other things like heart attacks. She didn't feel that COVID-19 was a serious situation. There really is that strange vein of sentiment across the US, not so much that there is pandemic fatigue, but rather that many people have never taken it seriously in the first place. And I think that's something that we've seen, a message that the president had pushed throughout. He has undermined it ever since it came to the US back in February, undermining his own health officials on the seriousness and the severity of it. And I think the end result is that is why we're seeing very few people out on the streets today supporting the president, deciding to wear masks.
I understand, I read an article, news report rather, that said that DC police have made several arrests there. What do you know? It doesn't seem to me, well, I mean, from where I'm sitting, that there's been a lot of violence, or is there something different you can tell us? But I do understand that there have been some arrests.
You're right, yes, there has been some arrests. There were about 5 arrests yesterday and overnight, some for assault, some for firearm possession. The DC mayor was warning people not to bring guns or firearms to the city. There's very strict rules. You're not allowed to carry them out here in public. However, many of the people who support Donald Trump are also pro-guns, and many of them were saying that they would be bringing their firearms to the city. We also know that the leader of the Proud Boys, a far-right, pro-Trump, pro-militia group, was arrested a couple of days ago when he entered the city limits. That was on charges of stealing a Black Lives Matter flag during December's protests when he was here in the city and setting fire to it. So there have been some arrests and there were some assaults last night, but at the moment it is very quiet, it's very peaceful. This will of course continue throughout the day. Let me just spin you around in this direction, because this is where everybody is heading. In a couple of blocks in that direction behind me is where the White House is. That's where Donald Trump will be speaking later. And as you can see, I mean, this is really a shot of the number of people that we are seeing out here today. Hundreds behind me, of course, thousands further on. It is likely to be a very, very busy day out on the streets as this continues. It's only about 10 a.m. in the morning here, and this will be continuing through the day, into the afternoon and into the night as well.
All right, well, it does seem that Trump supporters will be coming in their numbers from what you're indicating for us there. But what exactly is or was he hoping to happen on January 6th? I've heard him repeatedly, I'll see you January 6th, January 6th. He's gone on about this particular day. The day is here. I mean, there were some people that were saying that he's trying to instigate violence, and I wonder if that is something that we could possibly see, later on in the day. But really, what is he hoping for? What's the plan?
Well, I guess there's 2 plans as far as the president is concerned. One is getting as many of his supporters out on the street. So a number of times on Twitter, he's mentioned this as being a day of action, a day of protests. At one point, he said that it would be a wild day. He's added to that by saying that he would speak at one of the rallies. There's about 4 going on at different points here in the city. They've built a huge stage, a bandstand type stage with loudspeakers on the lawn behind the White House, and that's where the president will speak a little bit later on. But the second thing that he's hoping to achieve happens a few blocks in that direction, where Capitol Hill is. That's where lawmakers are meeting in Congress later on today to effectively rubber stamp the November 3rd election result, Joe Biden's win. Normally just a formality, but Donald Trump has been asking lawmakers, and he's gathered quite a lot of support, more than 100 in total, including 12 very influential senators who say that they will protest those results, that they will spend the day debating the results to try and hold them up. Now, it's unlikely that they will be able to overturn them, but the president has been putting pressure on those lawmakers, including his vice president, Mike Pence. His hope is that Mike Pence will throw out some of those votes. Now, legally, he's not allowed to do that, but the president's last best hope, essentially, is with Mike Pence doing that. Mike Pence, by some reports, has been pushing back on the president, saying that lawfully he's not allowed to do that. But I guess that is the second thing on top of the protests that the president is hoping for today on January the 6th, to overturn the election results and to show America that there are still thousands and around the country millions of people who support him.
Nick Harper, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Many thanks to you for that in-depth report, as always, and I'll certainly be catching up with you at a later stage about what's happening there in Washington, D.C. Thank you, sir.